Winona's Levee Park Committee met last week to outline the next steps in the process to rejuvenate the riverfront park. This was the first meeting of the committee since consultants with the Smith Group visited Winona last month. Committee Chairman Frank Pomeroy believes there are two big steps that will move the plans forward.
One is hopefully get the information back from the Smith Group, talking about cost estimates and all of the other things that we asked them to do for us. And they'll either send us a draft prior to the meeting that we have with the railroad. And right now they're looking at potentially a pre-council with council on October 6th and hopefully send us a draft before that. So we'll be meeting again when we get a draft from them or just after the meeting that they have with the pre-council meeting with council.
Having a timeline is very important to Pomeroy. He said planning park improvements in conjunction with completion of the new Winona Bridge is crucial to the success of the park.
As I said to the group tonight, when the bridge is done, we have to have a certain part of that park done. We have to have the bike path area that moves people from underneath the bridge into Levee Park done. MnDOT's going to take care of a portion of that from Riverview over, but there's a small part that we're going to have to do behind the waterworks plant. That has to be done. The entertainment area, we need that in place so that when people do come here off of the bike paths and tourists come here, we've got that in place. There are several parts in that park that I think are absolutely necessary by 2019 when that bridge is done. We have to have seating for people. We have to have restaurants and food trucks available to be able to service people as they come in. We have to have things there for people to enjoy. One of the things this railroad group brought up is, a small little engine with a few little cars, each of them having a corporate insignia on it for corporate sponsorship. I think that's a great idea. As a matter of fact, they could move the whole outside exterior of the park around, or a small part of it, and bring in some corporate sponsorship. I think that's good for the railroad. It's good for us, and it's a good way to help raise funds to move along in a phase-in different projects down at the park over time.
The biggest point of contention the committee has with CP Rail is the condition of the existing switch yard, which runs adjacent to the park. Several sets of tracks sit unused, and the area has become an eyesore. Pomeroy says it is important that the railroad be all aboard with what's happening with the park.
What we want to do is work with the railroad and bring them in as a partner to try to improve relations relative to the actual history of the railroad and how it relates to Levee Park, and be able to work as a group to try to bring some of that history back to Levee Park. And we think that that's a substantial part of the railroad area of the park. Bottom line is they own that property, and we have to work with them. There's a lot of concern, and I've heard it. You can't do anything with the railroad there. Well, I think you can. I'm an optimist. I like to think that if we bring some of the history of the railroad back into that park, that we can work as partners with the railroad, and they'll try to be good partners and good neighbors with us. So that's the card I want to play. Hopefully they're akin to the same kind of feelings that I have relative to them working with us, rather than have to fight and have to not get things done because they're unwilling to move or we can't move. I mean, those things are negative, and you can't develop a park that way.
Winona's history contains ties to steamboats, logging, and the railroad. Pomeroy said a railroad theme should be present within the park, and it may also help with railroad buy-in on the project.
You had the theme of the riverboat down there for so many years, and really back in the day, the Levee Park was a substantial part of the community relative to railroad history. The logging industry, an actual depot down there where service people were dropped off during the war, and you had congregations of people meeting down there. So there's a lot of history in the park. And matter of fact, Eric Brum and Tomaszewski have located a steam engine that used to run through Winona that's now located in a museum in St. Louis, Missouri. And there's some talk of maybe finding a way to bring that back here.
One feature of the park that may be the first to go is the garden area that occupies the former site of the Julius C. Wilkie Steamboat Center. The committee discussed the garden's removal to help facilitate an upcoming levee event and also to open up the park for other uses.
Eventually it's got to go. I mean, that is really the only sustainable area we have where you can build something and put footings in. So if we're looking at an amphitheater setting, if we're looking at a pavilion setting, for Live at the Levee, for Shakespeare, Midwest music, and those other kinds of events, then that is going to have to go. So what we found out tonight through Will Kitchen is that live at the Levee is already looking at putting on a real spectacular event on October 11th, I believe, and that they need that area for that. So we'll see what happens. The mayor will be consulted and go to council and talk about how you preserve some of that prairie grass and find a way to make that a usable area for events right now. And in the future, you know, it's probably not going to be there anyway to facilitate what we have to do down there.
City Council will need to be consulted before the garden can be removed. Community Services Director Chad Ubel stated a public skating rink could also be constructed on the Wilkie patio during the winter months as a way to open up uses for the park.